Joining me now to respond, former White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci.
How do you respond to all that?
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with what I just said.
Well, listen, I think you were spot on. You left that one thing, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
You see that?
And we can say that now.
Christmas is back.
That's right.
Merry Christmas.
So you were involved in some of these fake news items.
Yeah, sure.
What do you think of these people? Why do they keep being put on air when they keep blowing it?
I just think it's something about the president's style. He's a larger-than-life figure. He believes in the impossible. Most entrepreneurs know how to go from 0 to 1. It's a very hard thing to do. And so that's him. And so 0 to 1 on ISIS, 0 to 1 on tax reform. And listen, at the end of the day, in my cell phone, I probably shouldn't tell everybody this because they steal my cell phone, but in my cell phone, he's listed as Ted Rose, which is shorthand for Teddy Roosevelt, because at the end of the day, what the Trump legacy is going to be about is empowering working-class families and middle-class families with more wages and more disposable income. Look at the positive byproduct of this tax reform, $1,000 checks getting written by some of the largest corporations in America.
But that wasn't supposed to happen. Remember, the greedy CEOs were going to squirrel it away just for the shareholders.
But you see, and this is why I call him Teddy Roosevelt, because at the robber baron era, sort of 1890 to 1912, when Teddy Roosevelt got in there, he pushed these guys to create better living standards for their workers, better living standards for the people that were employed. Henry Ford said, listen, we're going to build these cars, and we're going to give you enough money to pay for the cars that you're building. Trump is that sort of guy. President Trump is that sort of person.
So Teddy Rose, a.k.a. President Trump, in your cell phone, do you guys still talk?
We do. I mean, listen, I'm not going to exaggerate how much I talk to him, but I was coming off set the other day talking about the tax reform, and we had a nice conversation. We talked before Thanksgiving. I was in Israel. I had a couple of rabbis with me on the bus going back up to the Tel Aviv airport. I turned to the rabbi and said, let's call the president. He's in Mar-a-Lago. It's the day before Thanksgiving. It took about 5 minutes for him to come on the phone, and then he turned to the rabbis. I had him on speaker. He says, you tell Bibi, Prime Minister Netanyahu, I'm coming to Israel, I'm going to beat him as Prime Minister. And they all laughed.
There you go.
Thought it was true.
So if you were to advise the president now, he's going into the second year, they've got tax reform done, they've got the Obamacare mandate repealed, drilling, and things are moving on the border. What would you like to see happen? Because the midterms are going to be tough. You know how that swings historically.
Well, midterms have been tough for all these presidents. You go back to Reagan, even President Obama had a difficult time in 2010. And so the first midterm is always a tough one, Jesse, but I think this president is going to surprise even on that, because the filtration of the tax reform ending up in the economy, more disposable income for families, people are waking up that he has the right policies. My liberal friends don't like perhaps his style, but when I press them super hard, and if you're at the dinner table on Christmas, just press your liberal cousins.
Yep.
What policy has he promulgated that you really don't like? And it's very hard to come up with one. So for me, I think if he just stays on course, he gets out there and he does the beautiful job that he does with his messaging, he's going to surprise people in November of 2018.
So what are you up to these days? You're like a big star. I've seen you on the late night shows. What's going on?
I'm unemployed. I don't even have a business card.
You're on welfare. Is that right?
I can't even get a $1,000 check from one of these big companies. No, listen.
You're doing something on TV, probably, right?
Well, we'll see. I've had a number of very interesting conversations in that space, and so my guess is that hopefully something like that will materialize by the first quarter of next year, which would be exciting for me. I'm also waiting for my deal to close. If for some reason it doesn't get CFIUS approval, which is too complicated to bore your viewers with, I have a plan. I have a plan B. I tell most of the entrepreneurs out there, and they get this, entrepreneurs very rarely use plan B, Jesse, because they always have to use plan Z. Okay, that's the problem with entrepreneurship. So we'll figure out what happens. But my guess is that 2018 is going to be a spectacular year. Okay,
and you're not running for any public office, because one of your former colleagues, Steve Bannon, I guess there was a report saying he was going to run for president.
Well,
would you vote for him?
Well, listen, when he runs for president, I'm going to enlist you as my vice president. You and I are going to run against them. I think that would be a pretty good, pretty colorful primary debate.
Scaramucci Waters, I could see it on the bumper sticker. It's a lot of letters. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot of letters, but people are ready for ethnics like us.
Okay, am I ethnic?
No, you've got that anglicized last name, but you probably have some ethnicity back there somewhere.
Somewhere, I don't know. One of your other people who people use in the same sentence, Ryan Lizzo. Liza.
Yeah.
So you blew up on him over the phone, and he hosed you. It was supposed to be off the record. Everyone was upset about that. Now, something happened to Ryan. I think he got canned for some sexual misconduct. Care to comment on that?
Well, I mean, listen, I mean, literally my first reaction to it is, the guy's got a family and he's got to make a living. So that was a little bit of like, whoa, because there's family members that are innocent involved. My second reaction is it's good news for America, so he won't be doing the sort of nonsense that he did to me. He's obviously a very bad actor, and so karma has a way of turning back on people. We can debate what I did. I did something wrong. I obviously was talking to him. Our families go back 50 years on Long Island, and I was talking to him in an inappropriate way. So I tell young kids, I've been speaking at all these different universities, when you do something wrong, admit it, own up to it. Obviously, I apologize to the president. He accepted my apology. We're still good friends. I understand why I lost my job, and the good news is that it set up all these amazing opportunities. And so when one door's closing, Jesse, another door's opening, and that's always good news. As it relates to Ryan Lizza, though, you know, I would tell people, be good to other people. You know the difference between right and wrong. Howie Kurtz said that what he did to me was unconscionable, and he'd never seen that done in 40 years of being in Washington to a governmental official. So, you know,
did you find that commonplace when you were there for that period of time, where people in the press corps would really have axe to grind, or they'd set you up for failure, and just so much animosity out there? What was your take on that?
Not all, but I think one of the mistakes was made early on is the declaration of war on the media is not going to. You're not going to win that from the presidency or win that from anywhere.
Kill him with kindness.
It's okay to have an adversarial relationship. It's okay to call out bad actors in the media. But declaration of a full-scale war, I think, is not going to help anybody. And so one of the things that I tried to do, and probably the only thing I'll be remembered for, is turning the cameras back on in the press room.
And that's great, because Sarah Huckabee Sanders is doing an excellent job.
Listen, she's doing an amazing job. When the president gave me the job and Sean resigned or retired, he turned to me and said, "You okay with Sarah being the press secretary?" And because we could, you know, you're okay. I said, I'm totally okay with that. Let's not even make her interim. She should be the press secretary. She's doing a great job. She carries the message well. She's extremely professional. But above all of that, there's a sense of kindness about Sarah, and I think the American people see that and appreciate it.
That really comes through. There are reports that the president is continuing to think about shaking up the staff. There was a whirlwind staff shakeup over the summer where it got a little chaotic.
There was a staff shakeup over the summer?
I don't know. You might have heard of it.
I had a pretty uneventful summer.
So, you know, 2018. Do you think there's opportunities for the president to get new blood in there, to move people around?
Well, look, I mean, this is his genius once again. People don't like this about him. Certainly the political establishment doesn't like it because he doesn't think like a political operative. He thinks like a corporate CEO or an entrepreneurial CEO. And so hiring and firing people in the corporate setting is not as big of a deal, apparently, as is in government.
In politics, it's huge.
Unfortunately, when I got fired and when General Kelly fired me, I was on the receiving end of it. Now, you know, I have been on the other side of it in a corporate setting where someone may be somebody that I like, but it's not fitting into the system the way I wanted to, and I've had to deliver the information that the person's fired. And so I have no problem with what the president's doing. It's important for him to get the people around him that he likes and he trusts.
Do you like the people he has around him right now? Do you think there's any room for improvement?
Yeah, well, listen, I think there's always room for improvement. If Jack Welch was sitting here on this set with you, he'd tell you that he eliminated 10% of the bottom performers at GE every year and tried to, you know, upgrade the staff every year. I'm not saying they have to do that inside the White House, but I think by and large the president's been served well by his staff, the new staff. I would say the post-July staff, myself included for that matter. I think he's done a very good job. But I do think there's room for improvement, as there always is. And my guess is he'll have new people that'll be exciting and fresh, and will help him out.
How worried about the Russia investigation are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Do you see it as a huge threat to the presidency or not?
I only see it as a threat that what happens with these special prosecutors is they take a very laissez-faire, broad attitude. So as an example, Ken Starr was appointed to go after the Whitewater situation 25 years ago. He stayed there for 5 or 6 years, and he ended up hitting the president on the Monica Lewinsky situation. So for me, I think these things get a little bit reckless. I don't like it on either side. I don't want to talk as a partisan here. If Secretary Clinton was in office, they'd be hitting her on Uranium One, the erasure of her emails. There's always a scandal, Jesse, in Washington. It's like Scandals Incorporated. It's done to distract. It's done to attack and disfigure people. It's like the politics of personality destruction. The American people are actually tired of all that. They really just want results. And in the last 11 or 12 months, the president has delivered results. Okay, the economy is moving. They said in the you left this out of your tapes, but
I thought
said,
it was perfect.
Your tapes were great, but you left out the fact that the Obama administration said we'd never grow at 3% again.
I know. It looks like this year it's going to be 3.
Here we are. We've had 3+ GDP prints this year.
Right.
And a lot of that is a result of the president deregulating, setting the right pro-business policies around the world, and obviously the tax cut, which will be very stimulating in 2018.
So the Democrats are saying the tax cut is a handout to corporations, it's a handout to the wealthy. It's the same thing they push every single time. How effective do you think that is going to be going into the midterms? Do you think the economy is going to be strong enough where people are going to tune that out?
Well, I think that they're going to tune that out, but there's one thing about the American zeitgeist that we'd have to be careful, and now I'm speaking as a partisan Republican, is typically the American people like balance in their government. And so you have the House, the Senate, and the presidency controlled by the Republicans. And so even though things will probably be very good, in my mind, economically, going into the November election, the American people sort of like that balance, and that's running up against the Republicans. And so they're going to have to work 3 times harder, because if you look at what happened to Barack Obama in 2010, or Ronald Reagan in 1982, or George W. Bush in 2006, typically the party in power that holds the Oval Office gets routed, and so that's built into the cake. But I do think that this is a dynamic, different sort of a president. He thinks very differently than these other people. And so if it's impossible to win and retake the House and Senate in the midterm election, you can't count out President Trump, because he'll probably do that.
Well, I know if President Obama was around and companies for Christmas were giving out $1,000 bonus checks, he would get all of the credit. And right now, the press has moved on from that story. They want to ignore it, and they want to delink it from the tax reform package. So I don't know if the president's going to get that much credit. I mean, he's got to claim the credit himself and do it over Twitter and push past the fake news.
Yeah, well, I think what we've learned, though, and the reason why he won, I mean, I don't know, you probably remember this better than me, there's probably 90% of the press was decidedly negative on him, or 74% according to the Pew Research, maybe 90% of CNN, and yet he still won the American presidency. And so the people know. I mean, they have a good nose for this stuff. Lincoln once said that the people have a very good nose. They can smell a rotting cadaver in their basement. And so the rotting cadaver right now is this super biased press. But it's also elements of the political establishment that the American people are totally tired of. They don't like the self-dealing. They don't like the lobbyist scheme. You mentioned Steve Bannon. Steve often talked about the swamp being a business plan. I do agree with him on that. I mean, there's no question that circuitry that the president is trying to disrupt and break will be way better for the American people. So we'll have to see how this unfolds. But they're going to continue to hit him because he represents change and disruption. And my God, if I'm on the other side of him, what if he's right?
They can't afford it. If the president is successful and the president's right, it destroys the two-party system. It destroys the culture in the swamp, because an outsider businessman with no experience to come in and actually accomplish things makes all of these politicians look feckless, and they can't afford that.
And it opens the door for other super talented people. It wouldn't just be right-leaning billionaires. It could be left-leaning billionaires.
It could be more Cuban.
The swamp is worried about both sides.
Yeah.
They're worried about a Jeff Bezos as much as they are a Donald Trump.
All right, well, they should be worried about Scaramucci waters.
Well, it depends. We'll have to see who's running against us. Do I get to say Merry Christmas again?
You get to say it. Merry Christmas.
Jess, great to be here.
Thanks
big
very
honor
much,
to be on the
Anthony.
show. Thank you.
Appreciate
Happy
it.
New Year to you, too.